Hello everyone, I'm here today to do a review of Blue Machine by Helen Czerski. And this was the winner of 2024 for the Wainwright Prize for Conservation. And it's basically a book about the ocean. It's divided in two parts. The first part talks about the physics of the ocean, and Helen Czerski is a physicist. So there is a lot of talk about how salinity and temperature works, why it's not like an homogeneous mass, and what effect does those kind of things have in the ocean. Also the waves, how they're formed, how the wind affects the ocean movement and dynamics and so on. And it does have some examples of how it works based on humans. So for example, this one is a phenomenon called dead water, in which the boats cannot move, and explains why physically, but it explains a bunch of different phenomena, also how sound and light transfer or do not transfer through water, and why we assume that the ocean is blue, even though if you take a glass of water or whatever, there is no color. A bunch of things like that, just physics, the physics of it. And then the second part looks more into the life inside it, so it talks about algae a lot. It also talks about certain kinds of fish and squids and octopuses, and also a little bit about humans. The author is from the UK, but she does seem to have a lot of connection and respect for traditional tribes in Polynesia that are kind of living in the ocean, and so there is also a level of respect in there that you don't always see, and even though she's a physicist, it does also take into account a little bit the cultural aspects. And then there is a small part at the end that talks about the future, and it addresses the fact that climate change is happening, and the contamination of the ocean, the acidification of the ocean, and all of these kinds of things, and how it's affecting the ocean, what it's doing to it, how it's going to affect us back based on the physics that we know. But I really also like that at some point in that chapter she addresses the fact that she didn't want to focus this book on climate change and what that is doing to the ocean, because she believes, and I also believe, that you do have to appreciate something for what it is before you want to save it, because otherwise what are you working for? And she does say that there are two ways to look at this. You can look at the ocean and all the things it does and all the things that it has inside and think that is worth saving just because of the beauty of it, or you could also think that more pragmatic, that you have to save it because otherwise we are all doomed basically. And I do like that she recognizes that there are those both aspects, because I hardly ever see the beauty of nature reflected on the discussion of climate change and why we should save things. And I think it's an aspect that is important to highlight as well. So yeah, if you cannot tell, I really enjoyed this book. I think it is very insightful, especially on the physics. I don't think I have seen a book that is so thorough and so meticulous about the way it talks about the physics of the ocean and how it works. And it's a very simple language. It's actually quite nicely written, poetically, and like sentence to sentence level is also, there are some very beautiful sentences in here. So I really enjoy that, and I enjoy that it's not focusing on climate change, it's just showing us what a marvelous thing the ocean is. With that said, I like that it's not focused on humans, but I, especially knowing that she did have certain connections with Polynesian people and she spent a lot of time in contact with those cultures. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that culture, because in the introduction she mentioned it quite heavily, and I thought it was going to be obviously not the same, but kind of Robin Wall Kimmerer for ocean people. Obviously she is not native Polynesian, so she cannot have that as much of a immersive cultural background as Robin Wall Kimmerer has on native thoughts and native takes on what nature is, but I was hoping for a little bit more of that, and that did not happen, which is fine. I think this is still a very valuable book, and I think I learned a lot from it, and I would be happy to reread it anytime, but I was just missing a little bit of that based on the introduction and what the expectations the introduction set me to have. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed this. I think it's a great book, and I would really recommend it for anyone interested even a little bit in the ocean and how it works and what it does. Basically it's such a overlooked kind of thing, and she also talks about that, about how people often say, we know so much more about the moon than we know about the ocean, and she's like, I hate that phrase, because although it's technically true, the reason why we know so much more about the moon is because there is so much more to be known about the ocean. So yeah, the moon is a rock, and yeah, it's very far, but still just a rock, so there's no living pieces, there is no moving pieces, there is not that much in the moon, whereas the ocean is this huge, complex machine that works in so many different ways, has so many variables, doing so many different things, and then on top of that you add the life that lives on the ocean, and it's like a completely different type of complexity that when you look at the moon. So that doesn't really make the right comparison, but at the same time, yeah, there is so much more that we don't know about the ocean, and there is so much more scientists don't know about the ocean, but also like what the people, what the scientists know about the ocean is so much more than what the people know. If you compare it to other things like land animals or mountains or whatever, there is so much more we don't know about the ocean, just because normal people are never going to see these things. But that doesn't mean it's not worth knowing. And this was like very eye-opening in that sense, and I really enjoyed it. And I would recommend to anybody that is even mildly interested in the ocean. So yeah, those are my thoughts on The Blue Machine. As I said, I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend. Let me know if you have also read it or you want to read it and what you think about it. And until next video, bye!